Hello, once again to all of my subscribers to Fool's Gold, Confessions from an Educated Fool, whether paid or unpaid. Welcome once again. This is Donald Earl Collins talking to you once again. Dispatches from the dystopia, so to speak. I shouldn't really be smiling about that, I guess, but here we are. So today I'm posting about Donald Trump's racism and black brilliance, or black excellence for some of you who actually still like to use the term. um, Wrote this thing about it to really describe the fact that this isn't everything that we're going through regarding diversity, equity, and inclusion, or diversity, inclusion, and equity, or equity, diversity, and inclusion, depending on how you use the acronym, is really about fundamentally black brilliance. Not wanting to compete with, not wanting to even be around people who make other people feel inadequate. That's the case with this. This has been a historic condition when white folk have had to compete with black folk on a relatively level playing field, and realizing that the black folk that they're dealing with who are in their presence are two, three, 10 times better than they are at anything like thinking, smiling, acting human, being able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, get better education, think quickly on their feet, have critical thinking skills, able to write their way out of a wet paper bag, all of those sorts of things. And so I wanted to move it beyond the conversation of white folks, and particularly conservatives and far right white folks who want to resegregate the country. Yes, that's what they want. That's what they've wanted for decades. What makes Trump particularly different, what makes people like Trump and Elon Musk and all the other characters that are part of this regime different, is the fact that they don't want to compete with black folk who have brilliance, who have excellence, who are, quite frankly, just make outshine them in pretty much every way, shape, and form possible. And so that's really what this is all about. And I'm not arguing that segregation isn't part of the equation. Of course it is. But for what purpose, right? Is it to just merely have black folk as subservient? Sure, that's certainly part of it. But the other part of it is make sure that folks who are brilliant can't compete. This has actually been the default setting for the country pretty much since there's been a country, right? To make sure that black folk who have intelligence, who are really good at athleticism, really good at pretty much anything, can't compete with white folk in the same field. That's always been the case. That's why there, even now in 2025, there's this drumbeat on social media and in regular multimedia about so and so is the first black person to do, or the second black person to do, or the first black person to be on this and be part of that, or to win this award or to win that award, et cetera, et cetera. Do you really think this is the first black person to excel in any field? Really? Yeah. It strikes me as really about black excellence, black brilliance, the ability of black people to actually compete with white people. So you get rid of DEI programs, you get rid of all the on-ramps, and enable folks who wouldn't be in the room to actually be on the level playing field, to not being out there. And there's this long history of going after black excellence, after black brilliance, right? And it's born of narcissism and jealousy and racism. You take all of those things and you make some weird Smuckers, peanut butter and jelly combined in one jar kind of thing. And it's awful, right? Just like that Smuckers thing that came out in the 80s was awful. This is awful too. And so there's this long history. Race riots, racism riots have started because of black people doing well, particularly in Tulsa and in Memphis and other places I mentioned in this piece. Um, there's this long history of just denigrating black people, no matter what their brilliance. I remember having a conversation with a white woman at a ETS event probably about 10 years ago, right? Educational Testing Service. And I happened to be reading a Walter Mosley book. And she, not only, when I told her who the author was, not only did she say, well, I don't know who that is, but she said it in such a way that was so derisive, like, what's so great about this guy? This guy who's only won award after award, whose books have been turned into movies. He's one of the probably 5 greatest mystery writers of the past 30 or 40 years, but yeah, you don't know who he is, and you don't want to know who he is because he's black, right? And that goes all the way down the line with black actors and actresses, with black athletes who always make too much money, with black musicians who really don't know how to create anything, especially if it's talking about hip hop or rap. But really all the other genres, unless it's blues. And then we can celebrate black pain, of course, because that's perfectly fine. So there's this long history of that. I even talk about my own experiences of, people making jokes about, would you call a black guy with a PhD? Any black person who actually has a master's degree, PhD, probably already knows the answer and punchline to that stupid, racist ass joke. But just in case you don't know, the answer is the N word, right? So these are all things that are part of continually, automatically putting an asterisk by any African American who does anything that actually smacks of, wow, they're as smart as, if not smarter than white people. They're as talented in this area that white people normally excel as other white people are, if not more so. That's why so many professions remain in the purview of white guys in particular, including tech, right? So the truth is that this is what this is really all about. They don't want to compete with us. They don't want to feel the need to compete with us because it makes them feel inadequate, it makes them jealous. And their narcissism and racism demands that they don't have to compete with us. They don't have to face the fact that they might not be adequate enough. And so that's what this is also about as much as anything else.